In this quick little video, I'm going to do a refresh on how to solve and graph linear inequalities. Solving and graphing linear inequalities is very similar to equations, with two minor exceptions. If we get to a point where we ever have to divide or multiply by a negative number, the inequality sign itself flips. And the other thing that's different is we have to graph our solution at the end. But for most things we're going to do, it works pretty much the same as a normal equation. So if I look at number 1 there, first thing I notice is parentheses. Hopefully that rings a bell to you. That always means it's straight. So I'm going to take this 8 on the outside and distribute that to both things inside. That's going to give me 8b minus 64. Then I still have the plus 2 and the rest of my inequality as is. Now, one thing I should notice here is that there are like terms on the left-hand side. So I'm going to condense those together. So I end up with 8b minus 62. Okay? At this point, it's very similar to solving a two-step equation. I have that negative 62. I'm going to move it on the other side. I'm going to do the opposite of that. So I have 8b is greater than or equal to negative 32. To get b by itself, I divide by 8. Now, I mentioned that inequalities are different in division, but that's only if I divide by a negative. The number I divided by was not negative. Even though this answer ends up being a negative 4, the number I divided by itself is not a negative number. So that was not one of these special cases. All right, so once I get my solution, there we are, I'm going to box that up. Then I need to graph it. When I graph an inequality, I'm concerned with two things. Is there an open or a closed circle at that number, and which way do I shade? So, because there's a line underneath this inequality, it says greater than or equal to. I go to negative 4, I actually make a closed circle at negative 4. And then if I think about what this inequality means, it says b is greater than or equal to negative 4. So the numbers greater than negative 4 are to the right of negative 4. I'm going to shade everything to the right side of that. Okay. Very similar with number 2. Let's see if we can go through that. Again, I see parentheses, so I'm going to distribute that negative 7. That means multiply. So I end up with 21 minus 7b. Oops, that didn't work out very well. Let's try again. Positive 21 minus 7b is less than 3 minus 4b. Now this situation is slightly different than before, only because I have a variable on both sides. It still follows my normal rules of solving equations, but I've got to deal with those variables first. So technically it doesn't matter which side I bring the variable to, but I normally like my variables on the left. So the first thing I'm going to do is bring that negative 4v to the left-hand side. Because it's negative, in order to get it there, I'm going to have to add 4v to both sides. So that leaves me with 21 minus 3v is less than 3. Okay, now again, 2 more steps. That 21 I need to take to the right. It's positive, so I'm going to have to subtract it. So I have negative 3v is less than negative 18. That 3 in front of the v, or the negative 3. To get rid of it, I have to divide. Now, this is one of these tricky situations. Because I'm dividing by a negative 3, the number I'm actually dividing by is negative. That takes that inequality sign and flips it. So it's initially less than, it's going to turn to a greater than sign. So I get v is greater than positive 6. Again, I have to graph the solution. So I go to the number line. Because it just says greater than and not greater than or equal to, at positive 6, there's actually an open circle. Again, I have to worry about shading. Greater than 6, the numbers greater than 6 are to the right of 6. So once, similar to the last problem, shade everything to the right, and then we're good to go.